Welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by HAYVN, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. I am your host, Nancy Sheed, and I am very, very, very excited to be here with Lisa Hurd. She is the co-founder and CEO of Lisa's 1973. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm very excited to be here.
For those of you who might not know, Lisa's 1973 is a food company, and they believe that food that's good for you should always be delicious. So we're going to dive into how a company with your name on it, Lisa, evolved and what the 1973 means. But let's take a little step back to say, was Lisa, when she was 8 years old or 12 years old, in the kitchen making things? Or can you share with us your kind of founder's journey?
Yes. So I have always loved the kitchen. I didn't realize that it would become what I do and it would become a part of who I am, is actually how I should phrase it. From the time I was a little girl, hanging out in the kitchen with both of my grandmothers, with my mother, it just created so much joy. I felt safe. I felt nurtured and cared for. I literally spent all my time in the kitchen. I would bake. I loved to bake. My sister and I would cater our family events starting in 5th and 6th grade. We loved it. And then my very first job was at a farm stand. And I know I didn't realize that it would be a really positive foreshadowing to what I would go into in my career, because I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer.
That's okay. Those are not completely mutually exclusive, but a little at opposite poles.
Fashion, food.
It's now, it's now very fashionable to take good pictures of your food, but we'll get into that later, as you know.
That's true. Yes.
So from the farm stand, I assume that wasn't your college experience. From the farm stand into sort of, or into sort of education and first sort of real jobs, what did that journey look like for you?
So it looked like this. I went to Tufts University undergrad, and I fell in love with classical archaeology. And yes, so
you can't see my face. I keep making these like quizzical faces to like, what?
I know. And I started to become really fascinated with food and wine traditions. And I started to specialize in studying ancient Greek coins that had Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, imagery. And that led me to Oxford University, where I got my master's degree. And that's where I really started to specialize and focus on ancient food and wine production, and particularly of the Mediterranean region, and of course, Greece, Rome, Turkey. Even Egypt. And then I wrote my master's thesis on, it was essentially Dionysus, the Greek god of wine. There was definitely...
I've never heard a more fun thesis than that. I'm sorry. That sounds like, I want to read that. Most theses you don't want to read. This one, share a copy. I think I want to read that one.
I will. It was all about really how the culture really, and how Dionysus, and looking at wine production, the wine culture, the wine rituals, and all of that, and how that really infiltrated society. And then and then simultaneously, I was in the Oxford University Wine Circle, and I was training to become a sommelier. So I then went on to New York City, and I was trained as a sommelier, and I worked in some of the top restaurants in the city. And I was also trained by Max McCalman as a fromager. So I did a lot of cheese and wine pairings and food and wine pairings. And so that experience, I just loved the food and wine experience. And then I hosted I was a host on Plum TV, on Nantucket, and all of these other resort markets such as Aspen and Vail and the Hamptons. And it was really, really fun. And I got to host a wine program as well, which was
Nice.
in the 2-hour live television show every morning.
Okay, I'm waiting to hear where this story gets a little rocky because I know it does, but right now it's sounding pretty dreamy.
And so it was really fun. I mean, I had an amazing time. And however, I mean, for me, I didn't realize that I had undiagnosed celiac disease. And I also was coming down with bronchial asthma, and depression and anxiety were just really, really starting to impact my life.
Mm.
And part of it was the lifestyle that I was leading. And part of it was the fact that I was not necessarily I wasn't eating McDonald's or Burger King. I wasn't eating fast food. I was actually eating very good food.
Right.
It just wasn't necessarily the right food for my body and constitution. Some of it was inflammatory for me. And so as a result, I started to experience all of these health conditions. And so I thought, okay, I need to leave New York City. I need to leave. And I went to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I saw every shaman and healer that you can imagine with smoking wands and 6-foot crystals. And I mean, trying to help me figure out what was wrong with my health. And I took a moment in meditation and I realized that, I had been studying these ancient and indigenous cultures. I'd essentially been studying food as medicine for like my entire adult career. And so I rolled up my sleeves in the kitchen and I started cooking, and I started really practicing in my own life food as medicine.
Mm.
As I said, I had been diagnosed with all these autoimmune conditions. There was one point where I couldn't even get out of bed for 2 months. I was back in New York City. I was at the French Culinary Institute, and I was learning all these amazing ways to prepare food, but I wasn't preparing with ingredients that were right for my body, my mind, and my spirit. So I started to use the technique that I was learning and started to apply them to gluten-free foods and dairy-free foods and plant-based foods. And I started eating almost exclusively organic, except when I was dining out, or organic as much as I possibly could, that is.
Right.
And I really started tuning into my body. I started looking at the quality of the ingredients that I was using. I started looking at the medicinal, functional benefits of the ingredients that I was using and choosing in my cooking. And my health did a 180. It was unbelievable, where I had inhalers. I can't even tell you how many medications I was on. I was so desperate for answers. And this is before Instagram, with all the wellness influencers telling you what you should and shouldn't use in your repertoire. Like, I literally had to become the archaeologist of my own well-being. And so that is how I started to heal. That is how my body, mind, spirit, my heart, every single aspect of my life, I started to incorporate prayer and meditation and looking at nature as a healer. And it was unbelievable what started to happen in my kitchen. And I had this transformation. And then soon after I started on that journey, I met my partner, Kristin, who became my wife. And within, I think, a year and a half of us being together, she was diagnosed with a stage 4 heart condition. And she was 38 years old. And so here I had already started this journey of being on an anti-inflammatory diet. And suddenly it was not just me that needed to be on
Right.
it, but she needed to be on it as well because her heart condition, it was genetic. It had nothing to do with her diet. However, regardless, she had to have open heart surgery and she too needed to be on an anti-inflammatory diet. And so I always say we take an 80 to 90% approach to, eating well. So we eat super, super well, 80
Mm,
to 90% of the time. And then, 10 to 20% of the time, and we have a 10-year-old son, we go out for ice cream
right.
and life is to be enjoyed too. However, we both really needed a very concentrated time to be able to heal our bodies. And then, so I started working with clients. I had a company, or I still do actually, called Food Body Soul. I know we're talking about Lisa's 1973. I started working with clients, private clients, and then I started partnering with a lot of different organizations from Brown Harris Stevens and Stribling and Associates and Lululemon, Yelp, Philosophy, the Detox Market, Soho House. I mean, you name it. I started partnering with all these different organizations and hosting events where we would bring food as medicine into
Mm,
how do you make it practical for your life? And then I became an instructor of culinary nutrition at Stanford University's Be Well program for their faculty and staff, which I still am today, which is really something that I absolutely love and enjoy so much. I get to work with the medical staff and the fellows and the doctors and the professors of all different departments across the Stanford University campus.
wow.
Yes.
And so, I mean, when you said partnering with events, I'm like, okay, so it used to be wine and cheese, and now it's, food is medicine. But your network helped you, right? Like, I mean, I like there are no coincidences. It probably made it a lot easier to be doing that. At what point did you take this kind of consulting work and your expertise and say, okay, a lot of people are never going to actually make it themselves. We have some products here. We need to sort of start getting our stuff into the hands of other people. Was there a light bulb moment? Did people ask? Did you always have this vision? What sort of evolved into, okay, we are going to be a food company. We're ready to jump into CPG.
Right. So people started asking. So made this one dressing. It's our hot honey lemon. It was a little bit of an earlier version of that. And everyone kept saying to me, this is the best dressing I've ever had in my life. So clients, friends, family, everyone started saying that. And then, you know what? During COVID, I started experimenting with, well, enhancing that flavor and
Okay.
then so refining it. And then I started experimenting with other flavors. So, for example, I had been a chef at Pure Food and Wine, which was a fine dining restaurant they specialized in raw foods. It was at Irving Place in New York City. And they used a lot of Thai basil. And there was one day during the summer, my mother in law said to me, Lisa, I have all this Thai basil and I don't know what to do with it. And I said, I know exactly what to do with it. So that's how I made our Thai basil dressing. And then Kristin said one night, she said, oh my God, I'm craving Mexican. I would really love a sauce or a dressing to be able to go with our fish tacos. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to make cilantro jalapeno. And that's how our cilantro jalapeno came to be. And now we're going into, and I've always had vinaigrettes as well.
Mm.
So those are our three launch flavors: hot honey lemon, Thai basil, and cilantro jalapeno. They've done extremely well. I mean, people just absolutely love them. They rave about them. They are made with all organic ingredients. Everything is beneficial. So we use chickpea miso. So there's no soy, there's no dairy. They're gluten free. They're free of the 14 most common allergens. they're family friendly,
I'm getting
essentially.
hungry right now as you're talking. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, ready? I need a big salad or
Yes,
whatever.
exactly. And now this summer, we're launching our line of vinaigrettes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So to answer your question, Kristin and I are foodies to the core. We love food. And being on an anti-inflammatory diet, we also didn't want to give up the amazing, delicious food experience as well. And that was really important to me. And that's something that I've always wanted to impart to my clients and my students as well, that you can have food that is as close to nature as possible, and it can be amazing, like even better than the packaged stuff, essentially. Even though what's ironic is that I've created a product that is in a package, and you can do both.
So it's COVID. You're starting your new flavors. Again, at which point do you go from we're giving this to friends and family, I'm making it for fun, to all right, we're starting a company? Was it an aha moment? Was it a like?
It was sort of I'm going to say it was sort of an aha moment. So I remember it was the summer of 2020, and my mother said to me, Lisa, this is the best dressing I've ever had in my life. Why is this not in a bottle? Why can I not buy it? And I said, okay. Like my mom has these very intuitive moments.
Mm.
And then shortly afterwards, I was talking with a friend of mine's mother who is actually a world famous medium. She's a psychic, essentially. And she's been on Oprah and she made Larry King cry. And
your network keeps getting better and better.
Exactly.
I just want to keep like the network that goes on in here is helping with all the food stuff. I just want to point that out.
And not 2 weeks after my mother said this to me, she said to me, Lisa, why are you not bottling these sauces? And I said, okay, do I need a third person to say this to me now? I have these intuitives telling me that like I have something. And so I didn't need any more proof. And I immediately started researching suppliers for ingredients, bottles, and co-packers.
And yeah. And I mean, I was just saying,
I immediately started
just because two people who are very intuitive tell you to do that, what was going on in your brain? Because as you and I have spoken before, it is a huge leap to go into, the CPG market and food and beverage. I mean, it's a big step. It's a really big step. So what did you, as you're doing this research, were you sort of like, we can do this, or what the hell am I thinking?
No, it was one of those gut reactions of, so many years ago, I'm going to loop back and this is going to be related. So many years ago, a friend of my family, he was a well-known artist. He said to me, Lisa, when you're an artist, he said, it's not a choice. You just know you have to do it. And that's how I felt inside.
Mm.
It wasn't even oh, that's a nice idea. They think I should bottle these sauces and dressings. It was, I don't have a choice. Like, it was something that spoke so deep from inside my heart and my being that I knew that this was exactly what I needed to do, that I wanted to do. Is a life's calling, essentially. And I looked at Kristin and I said, and you're going to be my business partner.
Did she feel this was her life's calling as well?
Kristin is my number one taste tester.
Okay.
We are life partners in every sense of the word.
Okay.
And I knew that she comes from a phenomenally strong background in sales and marketing.
Great.
She's award-winning. She's been featured as one of the top real estate people in New York City by Crain's New York. And she's led award-winning teams. And I just said, you know what? I know that I'm the creative and you're the business mind, and the two of us coming together, this is supposed to happen. It's supposed to be born. Just as our son was supposed to be born, this company's supposed to be born.
I love it. We're in summer of 2020. The ahas have happened. You've got your life calling. Fast forward now to we're summer 2023.
Yeah.
And I know a lot has happened. I don't mean to skip over those 3 years, but in that time frame, from doing your research to now literally having a product to, we're going to talk about HAYVN in a minute, but to, having a product that is in stores that you are now fundraising to grow. Talk to us about lessons you learned along the way that brought you to where you are right now. And I think one of them is you were talking about is how different a food and beverage company is versus other companies when you're growing, when you're worried about distribution, when you're worried about fundraising. Can you share with us some of those insights?
Yes, absolutely. So the first, with regards to being a food and beverage company versus being a tech company, every industry is so different. And I think a couple of years ago, I don't know if it really would have mattered. You can talk to people at this point, at this time in the fundraising space, you have to really know your industry. And I think it's very important to find mentors and advisors who can help you in your specific niche world. So we are CPG. We are food and beverage CPG, so a consumer product goods. And when we first started having conversations with people, we were talking with people who were in the tech space or in the beauty space. And their experience with fundraising is very, very different from someone who, because along the line, we found out that in order for us to be able to even speak to angel investors, for example, we needed to have $1 million in sales before they would even have a conversation with us.
Mm.
If we were a healthcare company or a tech AI company, we would just have to have an idea.
So not fair.
So not fair, right? But that's the reality of it. And as I mentioned, when we were first speaking with people who meant well, they would say, you just have to have a good founder story, a great pitch deck, and people will give you money. That is not true.
I think that's less true for a lot of companies right now, but
I think so
but back
too.
then, I think 100%. And
Right.
to your point, like 100 million in sales. Let's talk about the
Well,
capital
no,
then.
not 100 million, 1 million in sales,
Okay,
which
sorry.
is
Oh, wait a minute.
still a lot of money, right?
But the capital it would take for you to get 1 million in sales, right? Like that's not coming out of your back pocket.
It's not. It's not. So for our trajectory, we went through I Fund Women initially, and we did a crowdfunding campaign. And that was terrific because it created buzz around our idea, around our brand, and people were able to support us. I think we had over 200 people like essentially contribute to our non-equity fundraising campaign. So all of that money went straight into the building of Lisa's 1973.
Awesome.
And we were able to get our first products to market. It was so important. And people knew what we were doing. And they were like, we want to support you. And we were able to get our first testimonials and the first ways that our customers were using our products. And that was immense. That was huge. And we got some of our first publications, like our first articles. So that was great. Then we moved on to friends and family. And we're still in our friends and family round because we quickly learned that we were not, at first we were told, oh, you could do an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, and you could raise money through that. And what we've since learned is that we're actually too early for that. We also were told that we should start looking at angel investors. And that's when we learned through, and we were probably 100 conversations in before we finally learned that we needed to have $1 million in sales before we could even talk to angel investors. And that's totally fine. We do wish we had learned that a little earlier on.
For anybody listening, we've just made your
Exactly.
life 10 times easier. The secret sauce to launching a food company. Here's what you need to know that took Lisa and Kristin years to figure
Yes.
out.
Yes. And, and I have to say, every single one of those conversations, those are people who have become mentors and advisors and people who we can talk. We've started the relationships. And I think that is so important, establishing those relationships. So those are people down the road in a year from now, we can say, look at where we're at. This is our traction now. We're ready to have this conversation with you. And I've been able to talk to retailers, much larger retailers that we're not ready for. However, we've started to have those conversations with them and establish those relationships. So a lot of this is a marathon. And that's actually been an exciting part of it. I love establishing the relationships. And we started talking about HAYVN Hatch, and Kristin and I were introduced to HAYVN through Marie Roca, and we got to know Felicia Rubenstein and Christine Sullivan and Debbie Fay and Kim Barron and so many people, and you, Nancy, and
HAYVN's while we're talking, but
exactly.
But at what point? So who brought to you? And for listeners who might not be familiar, HAYVN hosts their HAYVN Hatch, which we like to kind of call the friendly Shark Tank for female founders. How was it pitched to you, Lisa, or how was it pitched to you and Kristin? Like, you should do this, you're ready? Or did you come to them and say, what do you think if we try this? What did that look like?
So we've known Marie Roca for over 20 years.
Okay.
And Kristin and Marie used to work together. And then, of course, we've been friends with Marie for years. And she said, I remember when she told me about HAYVN when it was first in inception.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow, that sounds really cool. And we were still living in the city at the time. Then we moved to Connecticut. And she said, you know what? We have this pitch competition that you may be interested in. And so we entered the pitch competition. We were accepted. And we were able to have this amazing mentorship because we had actually been in other accelerators where there were pitch competitions as well. However, HAYVN prepares you for the pitch competition.
I love that.
And that is what really distinguished HAYVN from all the other accelerators that we had experiences with. It wasn't just, oh, guess what? At the end, you get to be part of a pitch competition, or you get to be part of a competition that may land you as a finalist in the pitch competition. HAYVN actually helps you get ready for it.
Nice.
That was such a game changer for us because we were in a couple of other pitch competitions, but we were putting the pitch together ourselves we were like, okay, we hope this flies.
Hope this is appropriate. Hope this is what they want.
We had no idea what was supposed to go into a pitch. And we had no idea for the deck, for what we were supposed to include in our pitch that we were presenting. We just did it on the fly, hoping exactly as you said, this would land.
Well, I'm going to set you up to say, so you were all ready. You do the HAYVN Hatch, which was back in March, I believe. Was that right? Yeah. So back in March of 2023. And how did it go? What happened?
It was an amazing experience. It was so warm. It was supportive. It was fun. And we got to get up there in front of well over 100 people. I think there were 3 or 4 very esteemed, distinguished judges. And I was absolutely nervous. I'll be perfectly honest about that. And you know what we presented landed with the judges, and we won the pitch competition. We were
Woohoo!
absolutely, I was blown away. I started crying because I got to see Rose's sisters win the year before.
Mm.
And I was so thrilled for them. And they've actually been really wonderful supporters of us too.
We've talked to them on the Hubcast. And again, she walked us through like her journey of manufacturing and producing and all the things you learn. And then it's COVID, right? Like, this is why I said to you, like, the food beverage world is completely different. So
It
shout out to
really,
Rose's Sisters
really
Chips.
is. We've learned so much. Everything from needing an FDA attorney to review our labels so that because an example that was shared with us was there was a company that did not have their labels reviewed by an FDA attorney, and they spent $30,000 and they couldn't use any of the labels.
Okay. Before I sort of want to tell people how to get to Lisa's 1973, we have to touch on where did the name Lisa's 1973 come from? I think we can guess part of it, but how did you decide that was going to be the name of your wonderful company?
You know what? That was one of those, it was one of those intuitive things where I was just meditating. I've been meditating for 17 years, and it just came to me in a meditation that Lisa's 1973. It made sense. It wasn't, we'll see if that's, where we end up, but that's what it is right now. And the reason why we chose 1973 was because, one, I will admit it was my birth year. Beyond that, it was a year of massive social and environmental change in this country. It was the year that Roe versus Wade was passed. And, that's something that it's still a very important hot topic in this country, and women's rights. And not just women's rights, human rights. And then also there were some very important environmental laws that were passed. The Endangered Species Act was passed in 1973. And the world was changing, and there was a lot of forward-looking and forward-moving change. And 50 years later, we're still facing the same changes. And so that's why it felt really important. And the fact that Lisa's 1973 is rooted in taking a human-centric approach to sustainability. And yes, the environment, our planet Earth, those are very important spokes in the wheel. Part of the other spokes in the wheel also include supporting one's community, the financial well-being of the community, the emotional, mental, and physical well-being of the community, hiring and retaining a staff, and suppliers, ingredient suppliers, where diversity is represented, where inclusivity is important. And then it's very important to support organizations that further enhance our mission. And one of our missions is we support Healing Meals, which is a nonprofit organization in Connecticut that helps families with nourishing meals. They bring nourishing, allergen-free meals to families who are facing a health crisis. And so food security is so important, whether your family has food allergies or if it's financially based, if you're facing a health crisis, all of that is very, very important. So that's something that we support. And we also launched a Cooking Around the World cooking series at our son's elementary school, where we've brought in members of the local community who are from different cultures to share about their country's food traditions.
I love that. Okay, now I'm really hungry. Now I'm definitely really hungry. Lisa, thank you. I'm inspired, and thank you so much for your time. Like, I love how you've connected all the dots to your passion and your purpose and your mission, and how you've seized upon the common threads in a very holistic and intuitive way. I'm excited to see what's next or we are excited to see what's next for Lisa's 1973. And I think it sounds like you're in the building relationships, building your network, fundraising, and whatever that looks like at this stage and beyond, as well as you have amazing products now and coming out. So I feel like there's a lot of ways for people to get involved with you. What am I missing, or how do people connect with you to learn more, get your amazing salad dressings, or find out how they could be part of your team?
Oh, that would be great. So they can always contact us through our website, which is lisa1973.com. They can get in touch with us on Instagram through direct message, which is @_Lisa1973_. We're also on TikTok, which is the same handle. And then also, you know what? I mean, I think those are
great. No, and I'm going to give a shout out. Go check out their Instagram where Lisa and Kristin are in the car going to make their HAYVN Hubcast pitch. It is hilarious. They're in the car and Lisa's nervous and she's like prepping. So that was one of my favorite, okay, the recipes are awesome. The food is beautiful, but I have to say your behind the scenes is spectacular. So,
oh, thank you. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Lisa, thank you so much for your time. We'll put all of these links in the show notes as well. And we look forward to seeing where Lisa's 1973 goes next.
Nancy, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be a part of the HAYVN Hubcast.
Thank you, and we'll be back with another episode soon.
Thanks for listening to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. HAYVN is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. HAYVN is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the HAYVN community online at hayvn.com. That's HAYVN.com. HAYVN Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.